History doesn't always change with thunder. Sometimes it changes with a spark. No announcement, no prophecy. Just a small, violent chemical reaction that rewrote power itself. For thousands of years, empires rose and fell by the same rules. Strength, land, numbers, bloodlines, walls, swords, horses, courage. Then one invention quietly broke those rules. Gunpowder didn't just introduce new weapons, it introduced a new logic. It asked a terrifying question. What if power no longer belonged to the strongest, the bravest, or the most noble, but to whoever mastered force at a distance? And once that question was asked, history could never return to what it was. Because gunpowder didn't merely kill soldiers, it killed old ideas of power. Before the explosion, how power once worked. Before gunpowder, war was intimate. You had to see the face of the man you killed, hear his breath, feel resistance in your arm. Empires were built on proximity. Kings ruled because they could gather men willing to stand shoulder to shoulder. Castles mattered because walls mattered. Armor mattered because muscle mattered. Power was visible, predictable, personal. If you were born into nobility, trained from childhood, and surrounded by loyal warriors, your dominance was nearly guaranteed. The social order mirrored the battlefield. Hierarchy was physical. Authority was embodied. Violence required courage. This is why aristocracies ruled for centuries. Their advantage wasn't intelligence, it was structure. But this balance depended on one fragile assumption: that skill and strength would always matter more than technology. That assumption was wrong. The accidental birth of a world changer. Gunpowder was not invented to conquer empires. It emerged in 9th century China, born from alchemy, an attempt to find immortality. Instead, it found destruction. At first, it was unimpressive: fireworks, smoke, noise, ritual, entertainment. But history has a habit of weaponizing curiosity. Chinese engineers began experimenting: fire lances, bombs, primitive cannons. Still, even then, no one realized what had truly arrived. Because gunpowder wasn't powerful yet. It was clumsy, inaccurate, unreliable. But it carried something far more dangerous than lethality. It carried potential, and potential changes everything. The idea that broke the battlefield. The real revolution wasn't the explosion. It was distance. Gunpowder introduced a terrifying truth. You no longer needed strength to kill strength. A farmer with a crude firearm could defeat a trained knight. A peasant could erase generations of martial tradition with one pull of a trigger. This was not just a military shift. It was a philosophical one. For the first time, violence became impersonal. Skill still mattered, but less. Training still mattered, but differently. Power began migrating away from individuals and towards systems. Who could manufacture weapons? Who could organize supply chains? Who could fund armies at scale? Gunpowder quietly transferred power from the battlefield to the bureaucracy. The fall of the castle. No symbol captures this shift better than the castle. For centuries, castles represented permanence. Stone walls meant safety. Height meant dominance. Then cannons arrived. Thick walls shattered. Moats became irrelevant. Centuries of architectural wisdom collapsed in weeks. The castle did not fall because it was weak. It fell because the rules changed. Empires built on defense suddenly found themselves obsolete. This moment repeats throughout history, when institutions optimized for the past confront a future they cannot survive. Gunpowder didn't attack castles, it attacked assumptions. Why empires loved gunpowder. Empires didn't adopt gunpowder reluctantly. They embraced it, because gunpowder solved a problem every empire faces: control. Standing armies became permanent. Violence became standardized. Loyalty shifted from feudal lords to centralized states. The state now held a monopoly on force. Gunpowder made rebellion harder and expansion easier. Empires no longer needed charismatic warriors. They needed accountants, engineers, administrators. Power became scalable, and scalable power is the most dangerous kind. The psychological shift. No one talks about gunpowder changed not just how wars were fought, but how humans felt about war. Killing became distant, anonymous, abstract. You no longer heard screams, you saw smoke. This distance reduced moral friction. Violence became easier to justify when it became easier to perform. This psychological shift echoes into the modern world. Technology continues to widen the gap between action and consequence. Gunpowder was the beginning of remote power, and remote power reshapes morality. The rise of Europe wasn't inevitable. Europe did not dominate the world because it invented gunpowder. China had it first. So did the Islamic world. Europe dominated because it industrialized gunpowder. Competition between fragmented states drove rapid innovation. Failure meant annihilation. Success meant survival. Europe turned gunpowder into an arms race. Cannons improved, muskets standardized, naval firepower exploded. Gunpowder didn't favor any culture. It favored those who adapted fastest. History doesn't reward morality. It rewards responsiveness. Empires that failed to adapt. Some empires had gunpowder and still collapsed. Why? Because technology alone doesn't save civilizations. Rigid institutions resist change, elites protect tradition, power fears redistribution. Empires fall not when technology arrives, but when they refuse to reorganize around it. Gunpowder demanded new taxes, new armies, new politics. Those unwilling to pay the price paid something far worse. Gunpowder and the birth of the modern state. Gunpowder required scale. Scale required bureaucracy. And bureaucracy required obedience. This is where the modern state was born, not from philosophy, but from necessity. Borders hardened. Citizens became resources. Identity became national. Gunpowder didn't just shape empires, it shaped who we are. The world became organized around centralized violence. This structure still governs us today. Was gunpowder progress or a trap? So what did gunpowder really give us? Security or surveillance? Order or endless escalation? Stability or perpetual fear? Did it protect civilizations or make destruction inevitable? Every technological leap promises control. Every leap also carries consequences we cannot fully see. Gunpowder made empires stronger, but it also made collapse more catastrophic. The pattern repeats. Gunpowder is not unique. It is a pattern. The printing press reshaped belief. The steam engine reshaped labor. Electricity reshaped time. The internet reshaped identity. Each innovation shifts power away from individuals and towards systems. Each promises liberation and delivers dependence. Gunpowder was simply the first to reveal this truth violently. The lesson. Hidden in the smoke. Gunpowder didn't reshape empires because it was deadly. It reshaped them because it redefined power. Power is not strength, it is leverage, and every era discovers new ways to concentrate it. The lesson isn't about weapons, it's about awareness. Empires fall when they mistake control for permanence. Societies collapse when they confuse technology with wisdom. Gunpowder reminds us that every solution creates a new vulnerability, and every advantage contains the seed of its undoing. The question is not whether history will change again. It always does. The question is whether we will recognize the shift before it reshapes us. Subscribe Timeless Questions channel for more thought-provoking stories about philosophy, history, and the unseen forces shaping our world.